You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crap. Oh my goodness!
We interrupt our regularly scheduled TV talks for this important, controversial announcement. Don't worry, we'll be back on schedule next week, but for now, there's something very, very big that happened in the television community that needs to be discussed. Super Bowl 53, I guess? I didn't really care about it. It's the Patriots, of course. It's always them. And another team that was stolen from Missouri. Great. And then, of course, there's those commercials, which a lot of them were already released online, and even then they weren't very good and haven't been for years. And, of course, there's the halftime show, which is usually pretty garbage. However, there was this very big resurgence in interest in the halftime show recently, on word that SpongeBob's SquarePants would be making an appearance. Naturally, of course, once this aired, the internet blew up with rage. Apparently, something very, very wrong had happened. But what? What's the matter? Did lightning hit the Telecaster? No, actually. Something different. Now, there's a lot of sides to this argument, more of which is either you're for it or against it. Granted, there's a bunch of stuff in between that try to see all sides, but still. I'm gonna do my best to look at it from both sides, and then I will decide my judgment. Although, I've already made my decision, but, I'll just explain it to you. First, a little bit of background. As we all know, SpongeBob SquarePants had debuted in 1999 and was a tremendous hit for Nickelodeon. Created by Steven Hillenburg, it went on to put Nickelodeon even more on the map. Now that the show has been going on for a long, long, long time, a lot of the people who watched it when it first came out have since grown up. They have their own lives now, or their own kids. That, or they're just in college. Either way, they're all grown up, and it's very obvious to say that SpongeBob SquarePants definitely touched a note on their childhoods, and it meant a lot to them. The one that they thanked for this was Steven Hillenburg, the guy who created the show. He had devoted his entire life to making people happy and promoting marine biology. Sadly, Mr. Hillenburg died in November of 2018 due to a battle with ALS. As I say whenever any celebrity dies, every death is tragic and this is no exception. Especially because, well, I was one of those people that grew up on SpongeBob SquarePants and adored it to no end. In fact, a lot of the stuff I still do. I mean, come on, it's practically a second language with all the quotes that get spewed out and all the memes there are. So anyways, when Steven Hillenburg died, there was a big push online to get the song Sweet Victory from the fan-favorite episode Band Geeks to be performed at the Super Bowl. This would promote the life of a man who did everything he could to make sure that everyone was happy and enjoyed his stuff, as well as learned a little something about marine biology. Although that never really came that much into the foreground with SpongeBob. Not only that, but it kind of would have a side effect, too, of promoting ALS awareness. After all, the Ice Bucket Challenge kind of failed at doing that after it just kind of became a meme in and of itself. So how big of a push was it? Well, there was an online petition. Oh goody, petitions, those always work. Yeah, if you just petitioned Donald Trump to stop being president, that'll work, right? Yeah, so petitions never really seem to work out. But they start to get a little bit noticed when they have 1.3 million signers. Yep. The equivalent to the population of New Hampshire signed this. Needless to say, people took notice. Nickelodeon, NFL, the stadium, even the teams and the already pre-booked halftime show performers. They all started to know. And then they all started saying SpongeBob will make it in the Super Bowl. They start posting pictures. They start posting GIFs. They start saying which team will bring home the sweet victory. They put SpongeBob in a brief part in their sizzle reel. Roger Bumpus, the voice actor of Squidward, says that he was going to introduce the halftime show, which is kind of a red flag there. But the point is, NFL especially were hyping this up to no end. In fact, a lot of people were just going to watch the Super Bowl purely to find SpongeBob, or at least the SpongeBob equivalent, in the halftime show. Now, what's important to note before I explain what happened is that the petition explicitly said Sweet Victory to be performed. Not SpongeBob to appear, Sweet Victory to be performed. And it didn't say how to do it either. It could have been a cover by Maroon 5, it could have been the actual clip, it could have just played the audio track at some point because it's public domain. But here's what happened. At some point during the halftime show, all of a sudden Squidward pops up and says that he's going to introduce somebody who needs no introduction. Then we see SpongeBob doing his awesome little eager face, along with some of the other Bikini Bottomites, like Mrs. Puff, some random fish guy, Patrick, Mr. Krabs. And then that's it. We get Travis Scott performing a song that a lot of people don't really like, and that had a lot of expletives, apparently. The reaction that the fans had was basically, "That was just a bunch of cheap walk cycles!" Yeah, it's equivalent to Patchy finding the quote-unquote lost episode, saying, "SpongeBob betrayed us!" Even though a lot of the blame was put on SpongeBob at first, but very quickly it seemed to have died down and more just shifted to the NFL. And it's not just the fans that are blowing up at this. A couple pre-established places like Lids, the store that sells hats, they even tweeted on Twitter, of course, that they were kind of disappointed with this, and they're like, okay, waiting for SpongeBob to show up. A bunch of businesses, a lot of high-up people, a lot of internet reviewers. Even Nickelodeon themselves on 2 different Twitter accounts. One of them their animation Twitter account, saying that they wish that they had more screen time in a very passive-aggressive way. The other one is their Nick News Twitter, which I'm pretty sure is authorized by them. I'm not really sure, but they're basically saying, wait, that's it? That's all? The NFL pumped up, and up, and up, and up, something that was really just about a 10-second cameo insert. Let's look at this from both sides. You have the side that is defending the NFL, saying, well, everybody was already booked, and they already had Maroon 5 and Travis Scott, and whatever the heck was going on there was really hard to follow. Throwing SpongeBob in at the last minute was kind of all that they could do. And besides, they still got SpongeBob to the Super Bowl. They still had that little bit of recognition there. They still, in a sense, paid tribute to Steven Hillenburg, even though it's not quite what you wanted. So, just kind of suck it up there. And I kind of see their point a little bit. It is really cool to have SpongeBob at the Super Bowl. Granted, it would have been cooler if Steven Hillenburg would have been alive to see it, but hey, it's his death that got it there in the first place. And overall, it's just a cartoon show, right? Then there's the other side that feels lied to. Because remember, NFL had been teasing this over and over again, and have been getting everyone else to do it too. It's basically the classic best day ever SpongeBob ratings trap kind of thing, so it's kind of hypocritical that Nickelodeon would call out the NFL for doing this when they themselves do this all the time. But I digress. They kind of felt cheated and lied to, and that their petition was in a sense ignored. And overall, that it really didn't do Mr. Hillenburg justice. That in the end, it just kind of felt like some kind of tacked on thing for fan service or nostalgia baiting. So, what's my opinion on this? I'm mostly on the latter, but the former does have some good points that I brought up. It was really good to see SpongeBob at the Super Bowl, and it was good that, in a sense, they did acknowledge our presence. My biggest problem, aside from the extremely misleading advertisements and the somewhat disrespectful nature that it kind of was tacked onto, although, like I said, you can't really just abruptly do it all. And yeah, I guess they could have easily squeezed at least some of it in there, or at least, mentioned Steven Hillenburg or something, or at least incorporated it a bit more so it didn't feel so tacked on. My biggest problem is that it seems like they just didn't even understand it. As a lot of things like Business Insider would say, or Huffington Post, they more say this was for memes because SpongeBob has a lot of meme potential, and of course it does, absolutely. With a lot of the imagery and quotes we've gotten from SpongeBob, it absolutely has a lot of meme culture to it, but that's not the point. For once, something that came from the internet was not comedy-driven. Although, yeah, it would have been absolutely funny to see one of those groups sing Sweet Victory or at least lip-sync along to it or something. That would have been hilarious. But this really came from a genuine place, to promote awareness from ALS, that disease that destroyed this man's life, and to pay tribute to someone who really meant a lot to them. Was it really disgraceful to Steven Hillenburg, though? I mean, yeah, a little. Not as much as everyone said, but it really more feels insulting for the fans that were, again, misled and misunderstood. really, honestly, if they would have just tacked on something that said dedicated to Steven Hillenburg, or, been honest about what we were getting, I think this would have gone over a lot better. It's just the way that they handled it, or combination with the fact that they just didn't really get it. You could keep one of the things. You could have kept promotion or the actual product. You can't keep both and make everyone happy. So you can't really blame people for getting angry at, admittedly, what was already a pretty crap halftime show and a pretty crap game. That's why there's a lot of petitions out there saying, have SpongeBob in the next Super Bowl, or redo the halftime show and this time do it right. I've signed a lot of those petitions not because I want them to be redone. On the contrary, I kind of don't. I think it would kind of take away the specialness, and if they did it again, it would really, really take away a lot of the heart. But what I want to do is kind of send a message that they just kind of screwed up. It felt like they could just kind of throw us a bone and that we'd be happy with just about anything. But no, that's not it. You can't build it up as this huge epic and then just give us just filler, essentially. And a lot of people don't like that this lead-in that Squidward ended up doing led into a song that, again, a lot of people don't like. And they felt like having Steven Hillenburg's tribute follow that was not respectful, which, I don't really know. It's up for interpretation on there, I suppose. Hopefully next time, if ever, they do something like this, it'll be remembered a bit better, and it'll fare better, too. And no, playing the video in the empty stadium before the game even begins does not help. It actually made things worse, because a lot of the people, either by zooming in and seeing the video, or waiting outside the stadium and hearing Sweet Victory being played, that made it even worse. People actually thought that they were preparing for something, and they weren't. But of course, my hockey team, the Dallas Stars, they didn't disappoint. What they did was they ended up playing Sweet Victory during one of their games, and I love it. Go look for it on Twitter. It makes me happy, and I'm sure it will make you happy. And hey, you know what? The Super Bowl may not have played Sweet Victory, but I'll tell you what. If I'm elected to my state's governorship sometime in the 2040s, I'll look at having my victory song, if I win, of course, being Sweet Victory. I'll keep my eye out on that, and I'll start thinking it over. No promises, though, but I'll try. So what were your thoughts on the halftime show? Comment below, let me know. This is weird, because normally I'm not really a football guy, I'm a baseball guy, if anything. But of course, me being excited for SpongeBob, I had to tune in, and then after I saw that it wasn't there, I just stopped watching. I mean, what was the point? We already knew the Patriots were going to win. And a particularly low-scoring and uneventful affair at that. I was a lot more angry at the time, but now that I've actually kind of sat back and started thinking about it myself, started realizing, I guess the people that are trying to defend it have some points. I only agree with some of their some points, but still. The best way we can get through this is to just let NFL know that they screwed up, that Nickelodeon is right to be angry with this final product, and hope for the best next time. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next actual video I make. Real TV Talks coming next week.
Good night, everybody.